good morning everyone. So today we are going to discuss about topic 2, the accounting concept and accounting equation. Okay, shall we start now? Okay, come. Right now we are going to the third part of topic 2, that is accounting equations. So for those who have taken account last year, I think this topic must be very familiar to you guys. So in Malay term we call it persamaan perekonomian. So as you can see from the slide, asset is always equal to liability plus owner equity. Ataupun asset sentiasa sama dengan liability campur equity pemilik. So if I'm going to expand the formula from the top, you can see the asset equal to liability plus, and you have to remember the owner equity actually is comprised of capital plus revenue minus expenses and minus drawing. So let me go to the following slide. Now, what is meaning of asset? So when we are talking about asset, right? Actually, this asset refer to the wealth or resources owned by the businesses. Assets are divided into two groups. The first one is a non-current asset, and the second is a current asset. So we look at the first part, the non-current asset. So when we are talking about non-current asset, this non-current asset refer to the asset that have useful life extend over more than one accounting period. In other words, it's more than 1 year. So it can divide it into three. The first part is tangible or fixed asset. So when I'm talking about tangible or fixed asset, it's referred to the physical asset that are used in operation. So let me give you some example. Buildings, vehicles, equipments. Alright, I think we have other few examples. Perhaps you can give me later on. And later on, the second part is intangible asset. So these are the assets that without any physical substance and offer economic benefit to business. Ini merupakan aset yang akan memberikan faedah ekonomi pada masa depan ataupun kepada perniagaan. Example again, trademark, patents, copyrights. And the last part is other assets such as long-term investment, pelaburan jangka panjang. Example, fixed deposit for more than a year and purchase of bond. So enclosed is a few example of pictures of fixed tangible asset, intangible asset, long-term investment, and now we go for the second part, as I told you just now, current asset. So current asset refer to the cash and other resources expected to be converted into cash within a year, constantly of changing form and value. Ini merupakan aset yang cepat ditukarkan kepada tunai dalam tempoh setahun. Example, inventory, account receivable, cash, or bank. So come again, these are some few pictures. Okay, we can see money, the bank. So we go for the later part. Hold on. Sorry, sekejap. Pergi mana dah? Ya bukti. Oops, sorry. So let me continue again. Now we go to liability. So when I'm talking about liability, right? This liability refer to the obligation to be paid by the business entity to another party. Ini merupakan satu obligasi yang kena dibayar kepada pihak ketiga. And this liability divided into two types. First is a non-current liability. Come again, when I'm saying non-current liability, that means it's more than 1 year. So these are the debts to be settled within a period exceeding more than 1 year. So example again, long-term loan, mortgage ataupun gadai janji. So hutang atau this is a picture, loan application, mortgage. So the same thing, liability also have the second part, we call it current liability. And these are the liability that less than a year, debt dues in less than a year. Example, account payable, expense payable, unearned revenue. So now we go for the final part, owner equity, equity per million. So owner equity refer to the owner claims on asset of the business. So these are the capital invested by the owner into the business. So the net profit or loss as a result of business activity. So we go into the detail again, the owner equity. The first part is capital. So as what I told you just now, as capital refer to the asset contributed by the owner into the business. It will add value to the owner equity. So the second part of the owner equity is drawing ataupun kita panggil ambilan. So drawing is refer to the owner issuing the business asset, cash or merchandise for his own use. So come again, for his personal own use. The effect will reduce value of the owner equity. And the last part is a profit income. So this one, profit or untung basic, is derived from revenue less expenses. Now what is revenue? So normally revenues refer to all income from the sales of goods or the provision of services based on the concept of revenue recognition. And here again, revenue will increase the owner equity. We have two types of revenues. First is a revenue of business, example, sales or service revenue. And the second part is a revenue of non-business, example, interest income, rental income, gain on sales of fixed asset. And what about expenses? Perbelanjaan. Expenses are cost of asset used up or services used in the cost of operating a business. Expenses will decrease the owner equity. Example, utility, sales commission, delivery expense, and property tax. So when we are talking about the accounting equations, we cannot run away from analysis of the transaction. So the accounting equations show how asset, liabilities, and owner equity are related. Asset appear on the left sides of the equation and the liability and owner equity always on the right hand side. So perhaps we can go into detail by looking at example. So let me go to the example first. Example number 1 first. The owner start a new business with cash RM 1000. So you can see the point here, owner start a new business with cash. So that means the owner put money 1000 into the company. So for this example, right, you can see the asset will increase RM 1000. Okay, so at the same time also the equity also will increase RM 1000 under the terms of capital. So from this transaction we can see that an increase in asset will increase or result increase in equity also. So we go to the second example. The owner withdraw RM 100 cash from the business for his own use. Pemilik telah mengeluarkan RM 100 ringgit untuk daripada perniagaan untuk kegunaan sendiri. So the key point, the owner withdrawing RM 100 cash. So when the owner withdraw RM 100 cash, that means the cash will out, right? So we have to minus from the asset part 100 under the item of cash. So at the same time, the equity part, we have to minus 100 ringgit also under the title drawings. So from this transaction, we can see that a decrease in asset will decrease in equity also. So let me go to the example number 3. So you look at the example number 3, receive RM 3000 cash from Maybank for business loan. So now we receive money, 3000 cash. Now what happened? So I believe you can look at the asset part, under the item of cash will increase RM 3000 Alright, and this will follow by liability also increase 3,000 RM 3,000 under the item of bank loan. So come again, you can see that an increase in asset will resulting increase in liability also. So we look at the example number 4 now. So the business pay loan RM 100 with cash. So what happened when we pay loan with cash? The money will out, right? So that means under the asset, under item cash, we have to minus RM 100, and in the liability part, we have to minus RM 100 under the item of loan. So from this transaction, we can see that a decrease in asset will result a decrease in liability. So let's go to the example number 5. Business perform a service on credit RM 2,000 for YY agency. So come again, the business perform a service. So we give a services on creditum. So when we give on creditum secara hutang, our asset will increase for RM 2,000 under the item of account receivable, account belum terima. And at the same time, we can see the equity part also will increase RM 2,000 under the item of service revenue. So for this transaction, we can see that an increase in asset will also result increase in equity. So I think this is going to be the final example. Business pay RM 290 for utility expenses. So we are paying 290 RM, right? So when you pay RM 290, our money out. So what happened? So we can see the cash will minus RM 290, and at the same time, the equity part under the utility expense will minus also RM 290. So from this transaction, we can conclude that a decrease in asset will decrease in equity. Now we go to the final part, double entry system, ataupun dalam bahasa Melayu, sistem catatan bergu, double catatan bergu. So as what you can see from this picture. So what is the meaning of double entry accounting? So all this one, you see, whatever we do when we do accounting, right? Accounting use the double entry system, which means that we record the dual effects of each transaction. So each transaction affect at least 2 account. Setiap urus niaga akan memberi kesan kepada 2 account. Alright, and it will be incomplete to record only the giving side or only the receiving side of a transaction. So the total amount debited must always equal to the total amount credited, which means the accounting equation will always be in balance. Jumlah debit sentiasa sama dengan jumlah kredit. So come again, the double entry accounting, you can see some students will ask you, sir, what is meaning of debit? So when we are talking about debit, right, actually this debit is referred to the left side of the accounts, and credit refer to the right side of the accounts. So you can see from this example. So now we look at the rules of debit and credit. So as what you can see from the slide, the accounts asset, expenses or drawing. So when we buy asset, that means the asset increase, right? So we must debit. So when we dispose our asset, that means decrease, right? So when asset decrease or expenses decrease, we must credit. But anyhow, let me remind you, all these account, asset, expenses or drawing, always have a normal balance on the debit side. Whereas for the liability, equity and revenue, when we have liability increase, so we must credit. So when we decrease the liability, when we pay our loan, decrease the liability, right? We must debit it. And come again, these 3 accounts, liability, equity and revenue, normally have a balance of credit.
Half past 5, the only time that I'll be by your Let us take a short break. Here are some questions that you will need to answer. You are given 20 minutes to complete this task.